I just wanted to be left alone. But Chloe Martin crashed into my gray world like a stray sunbeam. She said she liked me from the very first moment. I didn't believe her. I was damaged goods, long past deserving any kind of light. But she stubbornly took my hand and pressed it to her chest. "Caleb," she said, "do you feel that? It's beating for you." I lived like a shadow, barely there. We're at home, a straight line between 2 points. Sometimes I'd go to the corner store downstairs for a pack of cigarettes, the cheapest kind they had. Life was a stagnant pond, not a single ripple. Until that night. I went to the store, same as always. I pushed the door open, and a small bell chimed. The guy behind the counter wasn't Sal, the old man who was always half asleep. It was a girl. She was loud, not because she was beautiful. It was the bright, canary yellow sundress she was wearing. It was completely out of place in the dusty, faded gray of the store. She was on her tiptoes, stretching, trying to reach a bag of chips on the top shelf. Her body formed a taut, graceful arc. Without thinking, I walked over, reached up, and easily grabbed the bag. I handed it to her. She turned around. Her eyes were bright, like they'd caught fallen stars. "Oh, thank you." Her voice was crisp and clear. I just nodded and went to the cooler for a beer. When I got to the counter, she looked at the cheap cigarettes and the can of PBR in my hands. There was no judgment in her eyes, just simple curiosity. "That'll be $9.50, she said. I paid with my phone. I grabbed my stuff to leave. Suddenly, she snatched a lollipop from a jar on the counter and dropped it into the plastic bag with my cigarettes. "This is for you." I froze for a second, looked at her. She gave me a sly little smile, the corners of her mouth turning up. "Life's bitter enough," she said. "Needs a little sugar." I didn't say anything. I just took the bag and left. As I pushed the door open, the night air rushed in. I heard her voice behind me, laced with a smile. "Come back soon." I didn't look back. I felt an unfamiliar flicker of annoyance. That girl was weird. Back in my crappy studio apartment, the overhead light was flickering on the fritz again. I sat down in the only chair I owned and cracked open the beer. It was cold. My fingers brushed against the lollipop in the bag. Orange flavor. I unwrapped it and stuck it in my mouth. It was sickeningly sweet. I wasn't used to it. The next night, for reasons I couldn't explain, I went back to the same corner store. She was there again. When she saw me, her eyes visibly lit up. "You're back." She said it like we were old friends. I grabbed my usual cigarettes and a beer. She scanned them efficiently, then, like clockwork, tossed another lollipop into the bag. "Strawberry this time." "How was your day?" she asked casually as she worked the register. "Same as always." "I'm Chloe," she said, like the perfume. I didn't respond. She didn't seem to mind. She handed me the bag. "Your beer, your smokes, and your daily dose of sugar." I took it and turned to go. "Hey, Caleb." I stopped dead. How'd she know my name? I looked back at her. She was leaning on the counter, chin in her hand, grinning like the cat that ate the canary. "You're still wearing your work ID." I glanced down. Sure enough, the ID card for the small design firm next door was still clipped to my shirt. The photo was blurry, but the name was clear. "See you tomorrow," she said. I practically bolted out of there. This girl wasn't just weird. She was a little scary. For the next week, I went every single day. It was like I was testing myself, or maybe it was just a new, strange habit. She was always there. I started taking my ID off and stuffing it in my pocket the second I walked in. But she still managed to accurately toss a lollipop into my bag every time. One a day, a different flavor each time. We started talking more. Mostly, she talked, and I listened. She told me she was a student at the Art Institute, and this job was part of a work-study program. She told me she loved painting sunrises, even though she could never wake up in time to see them. She told me she thought I was interesting, that I looked cold on the outside, but I always took the candy she gave me. My responses were usually just, yeah, or is that so? Once in a while, she'd say something that made me crack a faint smile. The first time it happened, she acted like she'd discovered a new continent. "Caleb, you have a really nice smile, you know that?" My face immediately went flat again. One night, I had to work late. By the time I got to the store, it was almost midnight. She should have been off her shift. The store was empty. She was restocking a shelf, humming a tuneless little song. She looked surprised when she saw me. Working late, I grabbed my stuff and went to the counter. She looked at my cigarettes and said, suddenly, "You should smoke less. It's bad for you." I didn't answer. I paid. and she reached for the lollipop jar like always. I put my hand over the top of the plastic bag. Not today. Her hand stopped. She looked up at me. Under the fluorescent lights, her eyes looked incredibly clear. Why not? I avoided her gaze. Too much sugar. It's making my teeth hurt. She was silent for a few seconds, then slowly pulled her hand back. Oh, the air felt thick. I picked up my bag. See you. She didn't say see you tomorrow. I got to the door and couldn't stop myself from glancing back. She was still standing in the same spot, head down, looking at the jar of lollipops. Her shoulders were slumped a little. She looked disappointed, and for some damn reason, a part of me twisted. For the next 2 days, I went out of my way to a different corner store, one farther down the street. Same brand of cigarettes, same brand of beer, but they tasted wrong. On the third night, I worked until my head was spinning. On autopilot, I pushed open the door to the usual place. The bell chimed. Behind the counter, Chloe's head snapped up. When she saw it was me, her eyes lit up for a second before she quickly put on a stern face. Well, look what the cat dragged in. I ignored her teasing and went for my beer. I came back to the counter. After she scanned my items, she looked at me, tapping her fingers on the countertop. You sure you don't want any candy? I looked at her. Her eyes were hopeful, with a hint of a careful, cautious question. My throat felt tight. Whatever. Her eyes immediately curved into crescents. She expertly unwrapped a lemon-flavored one and held it right in front of my face. Here. Her fingertips almost brushed my lips. I could smell a faint scent on her hands, like a mix of turpentine and candy. I took it. The lollipop was sour with a slightly bitter edge, but the aftertaste was kind of sweet, just like how I was feeling right now. Busy the last couple days? She asked, trying to sound casual. I mumbled a non-answer. She didn't press it. As I was leaving, her voice was bright again. See you tomorrow, Caleb. With the sour candy in my mouth, I nodded. And so it went. Chloe and I got to know each other in this strange, roundabout way. She learned I was a designer at a small firm, constantly pulling all-nighters to revise projects. I learned she was a brilliant painter, that she'd won awards, but was always convinced her work wasn't good enough. She still gave me a lollipop every day. I started getting used to this life, tinged with a little bit of sweetness. Until that Friday night. A nightmare client had me wound so tight I was ready to snap. My head was a chaotic mess. All I wanted was a cigarette. When I walked in the store, I must have looked like death. The smile on Chloe's face vanished. What's wrong? I didn't say anything, just stalked over to the cigarette display. I grabbed my usual brand, and then another pack for good measure. I walked to the counter and slapped them down. A little too hard. She didn't move. She just stared at me. You're going to smoke all of those? I was so on edge, my tone was sharp. Is that a problem? Her lips thinned. Yeah, it is. I let out a bitter laugh. Who are you to tell me what to do? The words were out before I could stop them. The color drained from her face. The light in her eyes just went out. She looked down and silently started scanning the cigarettes. 11:20, she said. Her voice was quiet, emotionless. I paid. She didn't give me a lollipop. She put the packs in a bag, pushed it toward me, and then turned around to straighten the shelves behind her, her back rigid. I stared at her back, thin, tense. The anger inside me was long gone, replaced by a churning, nameless regret. I stood by the door for a moment. The bell hung silently. In the end, I didn't say another word. I just pushed the door open and left. That night, I smoked half a pack. My mouth tasted like ash. For the first time, I thought, God, these things are disgusting. The next day was Saturday. I slept until noon. My head was throbbing. I looked at my haggard reflection in the mirror and thought of Chloe's pale face the night before. My chest felt tight. Was I really that much of an asshole? She was just worried about me, and I was so used to being cold to pushing everyone away. That afternoon, I found myself walking to the corner store again. It was the middle of the day, not my usual time. The sun was bright, and the store was empty. A different clerk was on duty. No Chloe. My stomach dropped. Was she not working today? Or did she just not want to see me? I grabbed a bottle of water. As I was paying, I couldn't help but ask the clerk, is Chloe working today? The clerk didn't even look up. Chloe, nah, she switched shifts. Said she was going to some exhibit at the Art Institute. An exhibit? I walked out of the store with the water, standing under the bright sun, feeling a little lost. The Art Institute. I knew where that was. It was a long way from here. I stood on the sidewalk, watching the traffic rush by. Two voices were arguing in my head. One said, "Go home, Caleb. Don't be an idiot." The other said, "Go apologize. You were a real jerk yesterday." I hesitated for a long time. Then I raised my hand and hailed a cab. "The Art Institute, please." The museum was quiet and cool. I rarely went to places like this. I felt out of my element. The gallery was huge, and there weren't many people. I wandered, searching without a clear target. And then, in front of a massive oil painting, I saw her. Chloe was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans, her figure slim. She was standing there, head tilted back, completely absorbed. Sunlight streamed from a high window, casting a soft, golden halo around her. I walked slowly, stopping a few feet behind her. I looked at the painting. It depicted a ruin. Crumbled walls, scorched earth. The colors were heavy, oppressive. But in a crack in the rubble, a patch of tiny, nameless wildflowers was blooming defiantly. Small points of color, fragile, yet full of life. It felt a lot like my own heart at that moment. She must have sent someone behind her, because she turned her head slightly. When she saw me, she froze. Her eyes went wide with disbelief. We stood there, a few feet apart, just looking at each other. The air felt thick, frozen. The gallery was so quiet I could hear my own breathing. I was the first to look away, back at the painting. This painting, my voice was raspy. "It's not bad." She didn't say anything. I licked my dry lips and turned back to her. "Yesterday, I am sorry. I shouldn't have talked to you like that." She looked down at the tips of her sneakers. It was a long time before she spoke, her voice quiet. "Caleb, do you know?" She paused, then looked up. Her eyes were shimmering, but she stubbornly held back the tears. "When you're angry, you're a real jerk." After she said that, she turned her face away and went back to looking at the painting. But the line of her jaw was tight. I knew she was still angry, or maybe hurt. I stood next to her, looking at the painting of ruins and flowers. For the first time, the silence between us didn't feel awkward. It felt okay just standing there. After a long while, she spoke again, her voice calmer. "I love this painting." "Why?" "Because it's real," she said, turning to look at me, her gaze clear. "The ruins are real, and the flowers are real. Despair is real, and so is hope." She pointed to an inconspicuous signature in the corner of the canvas. "My professor painted this." I was surprised. "Your professor?" "Yeah," she nodded. "He's brilliant. He says that real strength isn't grown from nothing. It's clawed out of the mud, out of the wreckage." Her words were like a small stone dropped into the stagnant pond of my soul, causing the faintest of ripples. We wandered through the museum for a while longer. She told me about the background of some paintings, the techniques used. I didn't understand most of it, but watching the way her face lit up when she talked, I thought, this is nice. By the time we left the museum, it was dusk. A cool evening breeze was starting to blow. We walked side by side down the sidewalk. "How did you know I was here?" she asked. "I asked your coworker." She just said, "Oh," and didn't ask anything else. After a block, she suddenly stopped and pulled a small sketchbook and a pen from her canvas tote bag. "Don't move." She started sketching rapidly. The streetlights had just flickered on, casting a warm, yellow glow on her focused expression. A minute later, she tore the page out and handed it to me. It was a line drawing of a person. It was me, standing in front of that painting of ruins and flowers. My face in profile, with an expression I'd never seen on myself. Was that concentration? "It's for you," she said casually, but the tips of her ears were turning pink. I took the drawing and stared at the person on the page. He looked like a stranger. "It doesn't look like me," I said. She glared at me. "What are you talking about? I totally captured your essence." I carefully folded the paper and slipped it into my shirt pocket. "Thank you." She smiled, her eyes curving into crescents. "Are you hungry? I know this great ramen place near here." I nodded. "Let's go." The ramen shop was a tiny hole in the wall, tucked away in an alley, but the food was amazing. Steaming bowls of tonkatsu ramen were set in front of us, the aroma rich and inviting. We sat across from each other. She ate with gusto, a sheen of sweat on her nose, completely unself-conscious. I watched her and suddenly thought, a night like this isn't so bad. "Caleb," she said, her voice muffled as she slurped a noodle. You're going to." Smoke less from now on, okay? She looked at me, her expression serious. If not for your health, then at least to save some money for candy. My hand, holding my chopsticks, froze. That stagnant pond in my heart felt like it was being stirred again. You're annoying. She pouted. Well, if you don't want me to be annoying, then stop doing things that make people worry. I looked down and focused on my ramen. After a moment, I mumbled, I'll try. She must not have heard me. What did you say? I looked up, meeting her bright, shining eyes. I said, I'll try to smoke less. She immediately beamed, her smile like a blooming flower. That's more like it. After dinner, I walked her back to her dorm. By the time we got there, it was pretty late. There were a few couples lingering under the trees, saying their goodbyes. We stood under a streetlight, our shadows stretching long on the pavement. Well, I'm heading up, she said. Okay. She started to turn, then stopped. She looked back at me. Caleb, what now? She took a small step forward, closing the distance between us. I could smell that faint, unique scent of hers, turpentine and candy. Today, I had a really good time. Her voice was soft, like a feather brushing against my heart. Then, she quickly stood on her toes and kissed my cheek. It was light and fast, like a butterfly that had landed for just a second. I froze on the spot. My mind went completely blank. By the time I came to my senses, she was already gone, a fleeting shadow disappearing into the dorm building. The night wind blew past. The spot on my cheek where she'd kissed me began to burn. I stood there for a long time without moving. I raised my hand and touched my cheek. I could almost still feel the soft, damp touch of her lips, and that sweet, particular scent of hers. Damn it, I was in trouble. I couldn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, the image of Chloe on her toes, kissing me, replaying in my mind. Her hair flying as she ran away, the tips of her ears bright red. The spot on my cheek felt hotter and hotter. Was I really letting some girl get under my skin? Pathetic. The next day at the corner store, I felt awkward. She, however, acted like nothing had happened. When she saw me, she greeted me with her usual bright smile. You're here. You would never know she was the one who'd ambushed me the night before. I got my cigarettes and beer. She scanned them, then handed me a new lollipop, peach-flavored. Here. I took it, closing my hand around it. About yesterday. I started. She cut me off immediately, pointing to a lottery ad by the register. Look, someone won $10 million. Her acting was terrible. I just looked at her. Her eyes darted away, and her ears started turning red again. Fine. She didn't want to talk about it. I wouldn't push it, but something had definitely changed. I started to notice things about her. The way her nose crinkled slightly when she talked. The light that danced in her eyes when she laughed. The elegant line of her neck when she stretched to reach for something. She still gave me a lollipop every day. I still went to the corner store every day, but the air between us felt thicker now. A look, a small gesture. It all seemed to carry a new, unspoken meaning. One Friday night, she got off work early. I offered to walk her home. She didn't say no. We walked slowly along the quiet streets. The streetlights made our shadows shrink and stretch. Caleb, have you ever been in a relationship before? She suddenly asked. I hesitated. No. She seemed surprised. Why not? Why not? I stared into the darkness ahead, my voice flat. No reason. Nobody was interested, and I couldn't be bothered. It was the truth. A guy like me, a loner, cold, broke, with no future. I was like a rock in a gutter. Who would bother picking me up? She stopped walking and looked at me. She spoke with a fierce sincerity. I think you're great. I scoffed. How long have you known me? Long enough, she said, her gaze unwavering. I know you just don't talk much, but you're actually a really kind person. You helped me get the chips. You always take my candy. You came all the way to the museum to apologize to me, and you walked me home. She listed off the evidence, her eyes shining in the dim light. Caleb, you're a much better person than you think you are. Something slammed into my chest. A dull, aching feeling. I didn't answer, just started walking again. She caught up and gently hooked her pinky finger with mine. I didn't pull away. Her hand was small and soft and warm. We walked like that, our hands linked, swinging slightly, like some kind of secret connection. We continued until we reached a quieter street near her campus. The night air smelled like flowers. It was peaceful, with only the sound of our footsteps. The hand that was just hooking my pinky slowly slid down to grasp my whole hand. She held on tight. Her palm was a little sweaty. I stopped and looked at her. She was already looking at me, her eyes clear, but with a kind of do-or-die bravery. Caleb. She said my name. Yeah, I. Just as she started to speak, a couple of whistles and jeers cut through the quiet. A group of guys, looking for trouble, swaggered over and blocked our path. Well, a little romantic stroll. The one in the lead had bleach blonde hair and was eyeing Chloe in a way that made my skin crawl. I pulled Chloe behind me. You need something? The blonde guy grinned, revealing yellow teeth. Just thought you could spare a little cash, buddy. I tightened my grip on Chloe's hand. Don't have any. He took a step closer, his voice menacing. Play nice, or your pretty little girlfriend here. He didn't finish his sentence. I moved fast, faster than I thought I could. I drove my foot straight into his stomach. He let out a pained grunt and stumbled back. His buddies, stunned for a second, started shouting and swarmed us. I pushed Chloe completely behind me. Stay back. The next few moments were a blur. Fists, curses, tangle bodies. I hadn't been in a fight in years, but I hadn't forgotten how. I protected myself and hit hard. In the chaos, someone pulled out a knife. A flash of silver. Instinct took over. I shielded Chloe with my entire body. A sharp, searing pain shot through my arm. He'd sliced me. Blood welled up instantly. Seeing blood seemed to spook the punks. They cursed a few more times, grabbed their blonde leader, and took off running. The street was quiet again. The only sounds were our ragged breaths. Chloe grabbed my arm, her voice thick with tears. Caleb, you're bleeding. I looked down at the cut. It wasn't deep, but it was long, and blood was running down my forearm. It's nothing, just a scratch. She was panicking, big tears rolling down her face. This is all my fault. If it weren't for me, I used my good hand to wipe away her tears. My movements were clumsy. What are you crying for? I'm not dying. She sniffled, digging through her bag for tissues to press against the wound. Her hand was shaking. We have to go to the hospital. It's fine. I can just wrap it up at home. No, we have to go, she insisted, her eyes as red as a rabbit's. Seeing her like this, the adrenaline and anger from the fight slowly drained away. In its place was a strange, soft feeling. I sighed. Okay, we'll go to the hospital. In the back of the Uber, she clung to my arm, her head resting on my shoulder. She was still trembling slightly. Caleb, she whispered. Yeah, you scared me. I hesitated for a second, then raised my good hand and gently stroked her hair. We won't take that street again. She nuzzled against my shoulder. It's not about the street. She didn't finish, but I knew what she meant. She was scared for me. At the ER, they cleaned the wound, stitched it up, and gave me a tetanus shot. By the time we were done, it was the middle of the night. On the way back to my place, she was much quieter. We got to the front of my building, and I stopped. You could just drop me here. You should get back. No. She cut me off, looking at me stubbornly. How are you going to take a shower with your arm like that? How are you going to change? I frowned. I can manage. Manage what? Her eyes were red again. I'm not going back tonight. I'm taking care of you. I was taken aback. That's not a good idea. Why not? She challenged, her chin tilted up. You got hurt because of me. We stood there at a standoff in front of the building. The night wind was cold. She was only wearing a thin jacket and subconsciously hugged her arms. I looked at her tear-stained face, her defiant eyes. The tension I'd been holding inside me suddenly snapped. I sighed. All right, come on up. Just for tonight. My apartment was small and messy. A single studio with a tiny bathroom. It was just me, so all my stuff was thrown everywhere. Chloe was the first woman who had ever stepped inside. She stood at the doorway, looking around the cramped, chaotic space, a little hesitant. For the first time, I felt embarrassed. It's a bit of a mess. She shook her head, stepped inside, and set down her canvas bag. It's fine. The atmosphere was a little awkward. I pointed to the only chair. You can sit. I'll get some. Water. Don't you move, she said, immediately stopping me. You're the patient. Just sit down. I'll do it. She found the electric kettle, rinsed it, filled it, and turned it on like she'd done it 100 times. Then she found a towel and went through my closet for a clean shirt and sweatpants. She moved around like a busy little wife. I just sat there, watching her navigate my small space, a feeling of unreality washing over me. The water boiled. She poured a glass of hot water and handed it to me. Careful, it's hot. Then she took the towel she dampened and looked at me. You should. Take off your shirt. I almost choked on the water. What? Her face flushed, but her gaze was determined. Your arm is hurt. You can't do it yourself. I'll help you wash up. You're covered in dirt and blood. She said the last word softly. I stared at her. She stared back. Under the dim light, her long eyelashes fluttered. After a few seconds of silence, I started unbuttoning my shirt. One button, then another. I took it off, my upper body exposed. I wasn't muscular, but years of fending for myself had kept me lean and defined. Her grip on the towel tightened, and her ears turned crimson. But she still came forward. Carefully avoiding my bandaged arm, she began to gently wipe my chest and back with a warm, damp towel. Her touch was light, soft. Everywhere the towel passed over my skin, it left a trail of shivers. The air in the room grew heavy, hot. I could smell that sweet scent of hers, getting stronger. Her head was down, her eyes focused on my skin, her breathing a little shallow. When she reached my stomach, her hand trembled. The towel almost slipped from her grasp. I caught her wrist. Her hand was small and soft, trembling in my palm. That's enough, I said, my voice hoarse. She looked up at me. Her eyes were misty, like they were covered in a layer of steam. Her lips were slightly parted, glistening. We were so close. Close enough to feel each other's hot breath mingling in the air. My eyes fell to her lips. The memory of that fleeting kiss outside her dorm resurfaced. My throat went dry. She seemed to sense what I was thinking. Her eyelashes fluttered, and she closed her eyes, like she was waiting or inviting. I leaned in slowly. Just as our lips were about to touch, I stopped. Reality crashed back in. She was young, a student, and me, a bitter, broke guy struggling at the bottom rung of society. Did I deserve this? I pulled back abruptly, creating distance between us. The movement was so sudden, I knocked over the chair next to me. It clattered loudly on the floor. She opened her eyes, looking at me with confusion and a flicker of hurt. Caleb. I turned away, picking up my shirt from the floor. My hand was shaking so much I fumbled the buttons, misaligning them. It's late. You can take the bed, I said, my voice stiff. I'll sleep in the chair. She didn't move. Why? Why what? Why did you? Stop. My hands froze on the buttons. I took a deep breath. Chloe, we're different. How are we different? In every way. I turned back to face her, my voice laced with a bitterness I couldn't contain. You're a top student at the Art Institute with a bright future. And me, I'm just a nobody slaving away for pennies, living in this dump with no prospects. We're not from the same world. She stared at me, her eyes slowly filling with tears, but her gaze was still defiant. So don't waste your time on someone like me. I practically snarled. Don't you get it? I have nothing to give you. I can't even give you a decent future. She fell silent. Tears rolled down her cheeks. One drop, then another. They hit the floorboards with a sound that cracked my heart. She raised her hand and fiercely wiped the tears away. She walked right up to me, tilted her head back, and looked me straight in the eye. Caleb. Her voice was choked with tears, but unervingly clear. I don't want what you can't give me. I have my own two hands. I can build my own future. All I want is you. All I want is. She reached out, gently took my uninjured hand, and placed it over her heart. Through the thin fabric of her shirt, I could feel the wild, rapid thumping of her heartbeat. Thump, 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 like a drum. Do you feel that? She looked at me, her eyes blurry with tears, but shining with a blazing intensity. Caleb, it's beating for you. That sentence was like a bullet. It tore through every defense I had. I stared at her red-rimmed eyes, her stubborn expression. I felt the heart under my palm, pounding frantically for me. So alive, so hot. The high walls I had built around myself crumbled to dust in that instant. I wrapped my fingers around her hand, tightly. Then I leaned down and kissed her. No more hesitation, no more holding back. The kiss tasted of blood, of salty tears, and of a desperate, point-of-no-return finality. She was stiff for a second, then melted against me. Her response was clumsy, but earnest. Her arms wrapped around my neck, her body pressing flush against mine. We were like two people who had wandered the desert for too long and finally found an oasis, frantically drinking in the essence of each other. The kiss was long and deep. We only broke apart when we were both breathless. Our foreheads touched, our breaths mingling. Chloe, I said, my voice a raw whisper. Yeah, she answered softly, her voice thick. I'm not a good person. I know. I have a bad temper. I'm not good with words. I'm used to it. I probably can't give you the things that other guys can. She pulled her head back to look at me, her eyes shining impossibly bright. Caleb, I don't care what other people have. I only care if I have a place in your heart. I looked at her for a long, long time. Then I gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. You do, as much as I hated to admit it. She'd been there for a while. When did it start? The first lollipop? That afternoon at the museum? Or was it even earlier, on the day she walked into that gray corner store in her canary yellow dress, like a beam of light? I didn't know. All I knew was that right now, in this moment, the ice around my heart had a crack in it, and the light was getting in. That night, she didn't sleep in my bed, and I didn't sleep in a chair. We squeezed in my narrow twin bed. She used my arm as a pillow, curled up against my side, like a small animal that had found its den. My arm was wrapped gently around her waist. I could feel the warmth of her skin through her shirt. We didn't do anything. We just held each other. In the darkness, our breathing was the only sound. Caleb, she whispered. I can't sleep. Me neither. She shifted in my arms, finding a more comfortable position. Let's talk. About what? About you. Your past. I was quiet for a moment. Nothing to talk about. She must have sensed a shift in my mood, because she didn't ask again. She just snuggled closer. Okay, then we won't. A minute later, she spoke again. Caleb, what now? I just like saying your name. You're ridiculous. She let out a low giggle. In the dark room, the sound was incredibly warm. I pulled her tighter. My chin rested on the top of her head. I could smell the faint, clean scent of her hair. A scent of sunshine and goodness that was completely out of place in my rundown apartment. But strangely, I felt a sense of peace. A feeling of contentment I hadn't felt in a long, long time. So, this is what it feels like to hold someone. So this is what it feels like to be needed. I closed my eyes. For the first time, this cold, empty apartment felt a little like home. I woke up early the next morning. My arm was numb from her sleeping on it, but my heart was full. Sunlight slipped through a gap in the curtains and landed on her face. She was sound asleep, her cheeks flushed, her lips slightly pouted. Completely defenseless. I watched her for a long time before carefully sliding my numb arm out from under her. The movement was slight, but it woke her. She rubbed her eyes sleepily. What time is it? Her voice was husky with sleep. It's early. Go back to sleep. She shook her head and sat up, her hair a messy halo around her head. Do you have to go to work? Yeah. She immediately got out of bed. I'll make you breakfast. I blinked. I don't really have any food. I already looked. You have eggs and some pasta, she said, heading toward the small hot plate like she owned the place. I watched her bustling around, that feeling of unreality returning. Just like that. I have a girlfriend, Chloe, my girlfriend. The words felt foreign and sweet in my head. She made 2 bowls of simple broth with pasta and a poached egg. It was basic, but it was hot. We sat at the small table, eating. She slurped her pasta and looked up at me. Are you still going to the store after work today? Yeah. Her eyes curved into a smile. I'll be waiting for you. While I walked her back to her dorm, she stood on her toes and kissed me again. On the lips this time. A quick, soft press, and then she ran off. See you tonight. She disappeared into the building, turning to wave at me. The sun caught her, making her glow. I stood there, touching my lips. I could still feel the soft warmth. A voice in my head said, You're done for, Caleb. You're completely, totally done for. 7 days with Chloe felt like they were on fast forward. Time flew by. My life was still the same on the surface, work, home, but the foundation had changed. It was no longer gray and lifeless. Now, there was something to look forward to. Looking forward to go to the corner store after work and seeing her smile as she handed me a lollipop. Looking forward to weekends spent together, wandering the city streets, exploring free galleries, or just lounging in my tiny apartment, doing our own things. Her sketching, me reading. Sometimes our eyes would meet, and we'd share a smile. It was simple, but my life felt full. She was like a wildfire that had roared into my cold, empty world, burning away the frost with a heat I couldn't deny. And I, a stubborn block of ice, slowly began to melt under her daily warmth. I started learning how to care for someone. I remembered she hated onions. I remembered she got bad cramps, so I started keeping ginger tea on hand. I remembered she loved a particular artist's coffee table book, so I saved up for weeks to buy it for her. When she got the book, she was ecstatic, hugging and kissing me like a happy child. "Caleb, how did you know I wanted this?" Looking at her joyful face, I felt like eating instant ramen for a month had been worth it. She changed me in so many ways, too. She pushed me to cut back on smoking. She dragged me out for morning runs in the park. When I was stressed and irritable from work, she would sit with me quietly, handing me a glass of warm water. My apartment was no longer cluttered and cold. She bought a cheap love seat and warm-colored curtains. She even put a few small plants on the windowsill. The place started to feel lived in. It started to feel like home. Once we went to see an indie film. It was a slow, heavy movie about a lonely man's descent into self-destruction. Afterward, she was quiet. I held her hand as we walked down the empty nighttime street. "What's wrong?" I asked. She stopped and looked at me. The streetlight traced the outline of her face. "Caleb, yeah. You won't end up like him, right?" I didn't understand. "Like who?" "The man in the movie," she said, her voice soft, with a tremor I almost missed. "You won't. Leave me, right?" My chest tightened. I pulled her into my arms. "Don't be stupid." She leaned against my chest, her arms wrapping around my waist. "I don't know. I just get scared sometimes. Caleb, sometimes I feel like you're so close. And other times, I feel like you could just disappear." She looked up, her eyes shimmering. "Promise me, no matter what happens, you won't leave me all alone." I looked into her eyes. So clear, so full of trust. They were filled to the brim with me. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. "I promise. I won't leave you. Unless I die." As summer was ending, her break started. She didn't go home. She said she wanted to stay in the city for a part-time job. And to be with me. Her family seemed well off. They weren't happy about her working. She got into a few arguments with them over the phone. After each call, she'd be quiet and withdrawn. When I asked, she wouldn't say much, just hold me tight and whisper, "Caleb, I just want to be with you." I was touched, but a heavy feeling settled in my stomach. I knew we'd have to face the problems between us eventually. Her parents, her world. It was a chasm I couldn't cross. But I chose to ignore it. One more day together was one more day. Over the summer, she found a job teaching art to kids, so her schedule was flexible. We spent even more time together. She practically moved into my apartment. During the day, I'd go to work, and she'd go teach. At night, we'd eat dinner together, go for walks, or just curl up on a love seat and watch movies. Like any normal couple. One summer night, it was brutally hot. The air was thick and still. We had just finished an old movie, and we were both covered in a thin layer of sweat. She wanted to take a shower. The sound of the water running filled the small apartment. I sat on the love seat, my mind restless. Jumbled thoughts about her, about the future, about the gap between our worlds that I couldn't ignore. She came out of the bathroom, wearing nothing but one of my white t-shirts. The hem barely reached her mid-thigh. Her hair was wet, clinging to her shoulders, and her cheeks were flushed from the steam. Her eyes were soft and dewy. She came over and sat next to me, bringing with her the clean, damp scent of soap. "It's so hot," she said, fanning herself with her hand. The collar of the t-shirt was a little loose. As she moved, it revealed the delicate line of her collarbone and the hint of curves beneath. My gaze was drawn there, and I couldn't look away. My throat went dry. The air in the room felt even hotter. She must have noticed me staring because she turned to look at me. Our eyes met. Something crackled in the silence between us. She bit her lower lip, her voice barely a whisper. "Caleb." Her voice was the spark that lit the fuse. I reached out, cupped the back of her neck, and kissed her. This was different from any other kiss we'd shared. This one was filled with pent-up desire and an almost desperate need to possess her. It was fierce, deep, and demanding. She made a small sound, a whimper, but didn't pull away. Instead, she pressed closer, her arms wrapped around my neck, her response clumsy but passionate. My hand slid under the hem of the oversized t-shirt, my fingers finding the smooth skin of her back. The contact was electric. Her body trembled. Her breathing grew ragged. We tumbled onto the love seat. The soft fabric beneath us, her soft gasps in my ear. My head was spinning. Everything was happening so fast, so naturally. At the very last moment, I pushed myself up and looked down at her. Her eyes were hazy with desire, her cheeks flushed, her lips swollen and red. "Chloe," I said, my voice raw and strained. "Are you sure?" She looked at me, her gaze slowly coming into focus, becoming clear and resolute. She raised her hand, tracing the line of my jaw. Then, she initiated the kiss. Her actions were all the answer I needed. That night was long. We moved from the love seat to the bed, clumsily exploring each other's bodies. Sweat, breath, tangled together. In her pleasure, she cried, her nails digging into my back. On the edge of losing control, I whispered her name over and over. "Chloe, Chloe," like I was trying to carve her into my very soul. Outside, the sky began to lighten. Everything was still. She was exhausted, curled up in my arms, fast asleep. Tear tracks still stained her cheeks. I watched her sleep, my arms wrapped around her, feeling a sense of contentment I'd never known, and a faint, sharp thread of panic. She was mine now, completely. But what could I possibly do to keep her? 8 after we slept together, our relationship entered a new phase. More intimate, but also more real. The intense passion of new love began to settle, weaving itself into the fabric of our daily lives. We'd bicker over whose turn it was to do the dishes. She'd complain about me leaving my socks on the floor. I'd march into her makeshift studio corner and turn off her light when she tried to pull another all-nighter painting. We were like any other couple. We fought, we made up, and then we fought again. But the one rule, the unspoken agreement, was that we never, ever threatened to break up. That was our forbidden territory. One time we had a pretty bad fight. I don't even remember what it was about. Probably something stupid and small. My temper got the best of me, and I said something harsh. Her eyes welled up, and she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I sat in the messy apartment, smoking, my insides churning with frustration. I regretted it instantly, but my pride wouldn't let me go after her. About half an hour later, the door opened quietly. She was standing there, holding a grocery bag, her eyes still red. "I forgot to get the ribs you like," she mumbled. In that moment, all my anger evaporated. I got up, walked over, and pulled her and the grocery bag into a hug. A very tight hug. She started crying softly against my chest. "Caleb, let's not fight anymore, okay?" I kissed the top of her head. "Okay." But I knew fights were inevitable. That's just life. What mattered was that we were unbreakable. When fall came, she started her senior year at the Institute. Her class schedule was lighter, but she was consumed by her senior thesis project. She practically lived in the studio, sometimes staying there all day. We saw each other less. Sometimes I'd get home from a late night at work to find her asleep on her love seat. Sketchbooks scattered around her, a smudge of paint on her cheek. Like a little stray cat. Looking at her sleeping face, my heart would melt. I'd carry her to bed and tuck her in. Then I'd gather her scattered drawings. They were mostly sketches and color studies. Until one day, at the very bottom of her portfolio, I found a nearly finished oil painting. It was a painting of me. The background was my messy, run-down apartment. I was sitting in my only chair, head bowed, a cigarette between my fingers, the smoke blurring the side of my face. My expression was my usual mix of coldness and exhaustion. But the lighting was brilliant. A single beam of sunlight cut through the window, landing right on my downturned eyelashes and the tips of my fingers holding the cigarette. It added a touch of incongruous warmth to the gray, cold scene. In the bottom right corner, she had written the title, "Light on the Ruins." My heart felt like it had been struck by something powerful. An ache, a thrill. So this is how she saw me. As ruins, but also as something capable of holding the light. I carefully put the painting back where I found it. I never told her I saw it. Some feelings are better kept in the heart. As her thesis show approached, the pressure mounted. One evening, I went to the studio to pick her up. When I pushed the door open, I found her just staring at a canvas. It was covered in heavy, oppressive blacks and deep reds, twisted lines that screamed of anguish. She heard me and turned around. Her eyes were swollen. She'd clearly been crying. "What's wrong?" I asked. She shook her head, not saying a word. She just walked over, wrapped her arms around my waist, and buried her face in my chest. Her voice was muffled. Caleb, I can't paint. It's gone. I gently stroked her back. Then take a break. I can't. Her voice was choked with tears. This show is so important. My professor and a lot of people are watching. She didn't say it outright, but I knew. Her parents were probably among those lot of people. They had never supported her decision to study art, and they certainly didn't support her being with someone like me, a nobody with no future. She had been carrying all that pressure by herself, rarely complaining to me. I held her tighter. Don't worry. You've got me. She was quiet in my arms for a long time. Then she looked up at me. Caleb, will you always be here for me? Always. No matter if my painting is good or bad. No matter what. No matter if I become famous or I'm just a poor artist. No matter what. She looked at me, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. But this time, she was smiling through them. Then kissed me. I leaned down and kissed her tears away. They were salty, but they tasted like hope. That night, she tore up the tormented canvas. I don't want to paint pain anymore, she said. Caleb, I want to paint something hopeful. Later, she started a new piece. It was a painting of a random morning, the two of us squeezed in front of the small bathroom sink, brushing our teeth. In the mirror's reflection, our mouths were full of foam, our expressions comical. But where our eyes met, there was a quiet, simple warmth. Sunlight streamed through the small window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. She titled this painting Morning. This, she said, is the life I want. Simple, real, and warm. With him. Chloe's senior show was a huge success. Morning drew a lot of attention. Someone even asked if it was for sale. She refused to sell it. She said it was priceless for her to keep. I went to the opening. I wore the slightly too formal button-down shirt she'd picked out for me. I blended into the crowd, looking at her art, watching her talk to her professors and classmates, confident, poised, and absolutely radiant. She spotted me, made her way through the crowd, and naturally took my hand. What do you think? She whispered, her voice full of anticipation. It's great, I said. Better looking than me. She laughed. Don't be silly. You're the best looking one. As we were talking, a well-dressed, middle-aged couple approached us. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The smile on Chloe's face froze. Her grip on my hand tightened. Dad, Mom, my stomach sank. The inevitable had arrived. Her parents' eyes landed on me. Their expressions were a mixture of scrutiny, disapproval, and unconcealed disdain. Her mother, in particular, looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. So, this is, her father began, his tone civil but distant. Chloe took half a step forward, partially shielding me. This is my boyfriend, Caleb. The air was thick for a few seconds. Her mother let out a cold little laugh. Chloe, this is the person you chose over your uncle's son. The pause was dripping with contempt. I felt Chloe's hand tremble in mine. A surge of anger rose in my throat, but I forced it down. I couldn't make things worse for her. I stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with her, and gave a slight nod. It's nice to meet you. Her mother ignored me completely, speaking directly to Chloe. Come with us. Your grandfather is here. He's waiting for you in the lounge upstairs. Her tone left no room for argument. Chloe stood her ground stubbornly. I'll be there in a minute. You'll come now, her mother said, her voice sharp. People were starting to look. Chloe's face was pale. I squeezed her hand. Go on. I'll wait for you. She looked at me, her eyes a swirl of emotions. Guilt, anxiety, a silent plea. In the end, she went with her parents. As they were leaving, her mother glanced back at me. I understood that look. It was a warning, a line being drawn in the sand. I was left standing alone. The room was filled with cheerful chatter and congratulations. But I felt like I was on a deserted island, an outsider. So this was the gap between our worlds. So clear, so cruel. I waited in the gallery for a long time. She didn't come back. She didn't reply to my texts. I called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. Panic started to set in. A heavy sense of dread washed over me. I found an event coordinator and asked where the upstairs lounge was. I ran up the stairs. The lounge was empty. I asked around until someone finally told me they'd seen the family leave through a side exit. Gone. She was just gone, without a word. I stood in the empty hallway, a chill creeping over my skin. The panic of being abandoned and the rage of being deceived twisted together inside me. It felt like I was being torn apart. Like an idiot, I went to her campus, to all the places she might be. Nothing. She was nowhere. Her phone stayed off. The night grew darker. I went back to the cold, empty apartment. The place still smelled like her. The art supplies she'd left behind, the love seat she'd bought, the plants she'd tended to. Everything was a reminder of her presence and of her absence. I sat on the love seat, smoking one cigarette after another, until the pack was empty. My throat was raw. My mind was a chaotic mess. After the anger came a profound sense of powerlessness. What could I do? Go to her house. I didn't even know her address. In front of her parents, I didn't even have the right to fight for her. So this is what she meant by different. So the life I thought we were building was this fragile. At dawn, my phone finally rang. Her number. I snatched it up. Hello. On the other end, her voice was thick with sobs. Caleb. She couldn't say more than my name before breaking down completely. My heart seized. All my anger vanished at the sound of her crying. All that was left was a deep, painful ache. Where are you? I asked, my voice hoarse. Home. She choked out between sobs. They've locked me in. They took my phone. They won't let me leave. Locked her in. What century was this? But I believed her. I believed her parents were capable of it. Why? I asked, though I already knew the answer. They don't want us to be together, she cried. They've arranged for me to go abroad. Next month. Abroad. Next month. The words were like hammer blows to my head. My worst fears were coming true. Caleb. Her voice was desperate and fragile. What do I do? I don't want to go. I don't want to leave you. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Outside, the sun was rising. A new day was beginning. But in that moment, my world went completely dark. I opened my mouth, wanted to say something, to comfort her, to encourage her, let her go. My throat felt like it was clogged with concrete. I couldn't make a sound. Suddenly, I heard her mother's sharp voice in the background, and the sound of a struggle. Chloe, are you still talking to him? Mom, give me back my phone. A burst of static, and then the line went dead. Just the dial tone. Beep, 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 like a funeral bell tolling for my heart. I sat there on the love seat, the phone still pressed to my ear. For a long time, I didn't move. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, pooling on the floor. It was so bright it hurt my eyes, but all I felt was cold. A deep, bone-chilling cold. I finally understood. To have something and then lose it is so much worse than never having had it at all. For the next 3 days, I was a ghost. Work, home, cigarettes, whiskey. Chloe's phone was unreachable. It was like she had vanished from the face of the earth, completely erased from my world. My apartment reverted to its former self. Cold, messy, dead. All the color and warmth she had brought with her were gone, leaving only the ruins. On the third night, I passed out on the love seat. Empty bottles and cigarette butts littered the floor around me. The doorbell rang. Over and over, a persistent, stubborn chime. I groaned, stumbled to my feet, and lurched toward the door. When I opened it, the person standing there sobered me up instantly. It was Chloe. She was wearing the same dress from the gallery opening 3 days ago. It was wrinkled and stained. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were swollen like walnuts, and there were fresh tear tracks on her cheeks. She looked utterly wrecked, like a small, rain-drenched bird with nowhere to go. We stared at each other across the threshold. She looked at me, her lips trembling, and tears started to fall again, silently. Caleb. She croaked my name. My heart felt like it was being crushed in a fist. The pain was so intense, I couldn't breathe. I stepped aside. Get in. She walked in, and I closed the door. The moment it clicked shut, she threw herself into my arms. Her arms locked around my waist, her face buried in my chest, and she began to sob. Loud, ragged sobs filled with fear, pain, and relief. I stood there, frozen for a second, my hands hovering in the air. Finally, I let them fall onto her shaking back. I started patting her gently. They tried to make me go abroad. They locked me in my room. Took everything. I ran away. I climbed out the window. She told me the story in broken pieces between sobs. I finally noticed the scrapes and bruises on her arms and legs. A sharp pain lanced through my chest. To get to me, she had Caleb. She looked up, her face a mess of tears, her eyes shattered and desperate. I have no one else. I only have you. Please don't leave me. Please. Her words were like knives stabbing into my heart. I looked at her, this girl who had thrown everything away, who had risked everything just to get back to me. What reason did I have to back down? What right did I have to push her away? I lowered my head and kissed her. The kiss tasted of whiskey and her salty tears. This wasn't about desire. This was a confirmation, a brand, confirming that we were real, branding ourselves as inseparably linked. When the kiss ended, we rested our foreheads together, breathing hard. "You're not going?" I asked. "I'm not going," she answered, her voice firm. "You won't regret this?" "I'll never regret it." I looked into her determined eyes. In them, I saw my own reflection, just as determined. "Okay," I said, "then you're not going." In that moment, I made my choice. No matter what storms were coming, no matter what obstacles lay ahead, this person was mine, and I wouldn't let anyone take her from me. I picked her up and carried her to the bathroom. I drew a hot bath and helped her clean up. I carefully tended to the scrapes on her skin. She was pliant and still, letting me take care of her, her eyes never leaving my face. As if she was afraid I'd disappear if she blinked. After her bath, I wrapped her in a towel and carried her to the bed. I lay down next to her, pulling her into a tight embrace. Her body was cold, trembling slightly in my arms that I pulled the comforter over both of us. "Sleep," I said. "I'm right here." She snuggled closer, finding a comfortable spot. Her arm wrapped around my waist. Her face pressed against my chest. Her breathing slowly evened out. She was asleep. Tear tracks still stained her cheeks, but the frantic tension in her brow had eased. I watched her sleep and stayed awake all night. My mind raced, thinking about our future. It was a blurry, difficult path, but for the first time, the direction was crystal clear. I was going to be with her, and to do that, I had to be stronger. Strong enough to protect her, strong enough to make her parents see me. It would be hard, but for the person in my arms, I was willing to try, even if it meant getting beaten to a pulp. When the sun came up, she stirred in my arms and woke up. She opened her eyes, saw me, and blinked. Then a slow, relieved smile spread across her face. "Morning, morning." We just looked at each other. No more words were needed. Some decisions, once they take root in your heart, are destined to grow into giant trees. Running away had, predictably, enraged her parents. The next day, her phone was bombarded with calls and texts. Her father, her mother, taking turns. Their words were harsh, filled with pressure. She answered a few times, which led to arguments and tears. Eventually, she just put her phone on silent. We stayed in my apartment, like two soldiers defending a tiny island against a hurricane. Her father even showed up at my office. I went downstairs to meet him. He stood outside the building, dressed in an expensive suit, exuding an aura of power. He looked at me like I was garbage. "Name your price," he said, getting straight to the point. "How much money will it take for you to leave my daughter alone?" I looked at him, my heart calm. "Sir, Chloe isn't for sale." He sneered. "Don't give me that crap. I've seen guys like you before. You're just after our families. The only thing I'm after is Chloe." I cut him off, my voice even but firm. "She likes me, and I like her. It's that simple." He stared at me, his eyes sharp. "Like, can you eat like? What can you give her? Let her live with you in that shoebox. Let her cut ties with her family for you. Is that what you call like?" His words were needles, hitting my most vulnerable spots. But I didn't back down. Just because I can't give it to her now doesn't mean I can't in the future. The future? He scoffed. "Don't be naive, kid. The gap between our worlds isn't something you can bridge with a few empty promises." He held out a business card. "This is my lawyer's card. When you come to your senses, call him. Name any price you want, as long as you disappear from my daughter's life for good." I didn't take it. "I'm not leaving her." His eyes went cold. "Then don't blame me for trying other methods." He turned and walked away. His retreating back was a statement. I knew this was just the beginning of the war. Chloe's war with her family escalated. Her parents tried everything. They cut her off, financially pressured her, and even got her professors and friends to try to talk her out of it. But she was like a stubborn vine, clinging to me, a not-so-sturdy tree. The wind and rain battered us, but she refused to let go. We moved. We found a slightly better, but more remote, one-bedroom apartment. We paid for it with our two meager salaries. Money was incredibly tight. She stopped buying new clothes, stopped using expensive paints. I quit smoking and drinking, stopped pulling all-nighters for my job, and started using every spare moment to take on freelance work and improve my skills. Our life was a constant source of stress and uncertainty. But strangely, we rarely fought. Instead, there was a feeling of us against the world. At night, we'd squeeze together at our small desk. She'd paint, and I'd work on my designs. The warm glow of the desk lamp enveloped us. Sometimes we'd look up, our eyes would meet, and we'd smile. Then we'd get back to work. She'd give me the only egg from her bowl of instant ramen. I'd quietly drape a blanket over her when she fell asleep. We were poor, but we were warm. Once a freelance project I was working on went south. The client refused to pay, and a month's worth of work went down the drain. I was at my lowest point. When I got home, I found her using cheap paints to create the most beautiful starry night I had ever seen. She saw me, put down her brush, and came over. She hugged me. "It's okay, Caleb." Her voice was soft. "We can take it slow." I closed my eyes, melting into her embrace. All the pressure and frustration from the outside world just faded away. Yes, slow. As long as she was here, what did it matter if things were a little slow? But the harshness of reality doesn't lessen just because you're resilient. Her mother found our new apartment. I was working late that day. When I got back, I saw the light on in our apartment from the street below. My stomach clenched. I ran up the stairs. When I opened the door, I saw her mother standing in the middle of our living room, pointing a finger at Chloe's face, shouting, "Look at you, what have you become? Living in this dump with this man, you've disgraced our entire family." Chloe stood opposite her, her face pale, but her back was ramrod straight. "I'm supporting myself. There's no shame in that." "Supporting yourself?" Her mother sneered, her eyes sweeping over the shabby furniture. "Look at this life you're living. Is this the love you wanted so badly?" She saw me walk in, and her gaze grew even sharper. "Good, you're back." She pulled a check from her designer handbag and slapped it on the table. $1 million. Take the money and get out of my daughter's life. I looked at the check. Then I looked at Chloe. She was looking at me, her eyes filled with tension and worry. I walked over, ignored the check, and tore it in half. I dropped the pieces into the trash can. "Ma'am," I said, looking at her mother, my voice calm. "Your daughter, to me, is priceless." Her mother's face turned purple with rage. "Fine, just fine. You two have your pride." She pointed at Chloe. "Chloe Martin, I'm telling you this right now. If you insist on being with this broke loser, then I'll consider you dead. You will not get another penny from the Martin family. From now on, whether you live or die is none of our concern." The words were brutal. Chloe swayed on her feet. The color drained from her face completely. Tears welled in her eyes, but she bit her lip so hard they didn't fall. She looked at her mother and said, each word deliberate, "Mom, this is the path I chose. Rich or poor, live or die, I'll accept it." Her mother stared at her, her chest heaving. Finally, without another word, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The loud bang echoed through the hallway. The apartment fell silent. Chloe stood there, frozen in the same position, like a statue. I walked over and gently wrapped my arms around her. Her body was cold, rigid. "Chloe," I called her name. She didn't respond. After a long, long time, it was as if all the strength was suddenly drained from her body. She went limp in my arms. The repressed, desperate sobs finally broke free. "Caleb, I don't have a family anymore. I don't have a mom." She cried, her voice raw and broken. Her body trembled violently in my arms. I held her tight, like I was holding the most precious, fragile thing in the world. "You still have me," I whispered in her hair, my own voice choked. "Chloe, I'm your family now." Outside, the night was dark. The city was a sea of lights, but not a single one of them belonged to us. But we were each other's light, and each other's only hope. After the final break with her family, Chloe was down for a few days, but she bounced back quickly. "Caleb," she said, "you're really all I have now, so we have to work even harder." She started painting with a new fervor, taking on commercial illustration gigs. The pay wasn't great, but it helped make ends meet. I threw myself into my work, chasing every possible opportunity. Our life was like a tightly wound string, busy, exhausting, but with a clear goal. We rarely talked about the future. That word was too heavy. We just lived each day as hard as we could. Winter came. Our new apartment didn't have central heating. We relied on a small space heater. At night, we'd wrap ourselves in thick blankets and huddle on the love seat to watch movies. Her feet were always cold, so I'd tuck them under my sweater to warm them up. Her hands got chilblains from painting for long hours in the cold. They were red and swollen. I bought ointment and carefully applied it for her every night before bed. Life was hard, but our hearts were full. On Christmas Eve, it started to snow, a light dusting that melted as soon as it hit the city's grimy streets. But we were overjoyed. We ran downstairs and spun around in the sparse flurries like two idiots. She tilted her head back, trying to catch snowflakes on her tongue. Caleb, it's sweet. I looked at her face, red from the cold, and her sparkling eyes. I thought, this must be happiness. A poor, insignificant, but very real happiness. We bought a hot pretzel from a street vendor. We shared it. The warm, salty taste warmed us all the way through. Caleb, she said, her breath fogging in the cold air. Yeah, when we have money, let's buy a big house with huge floor-to-ceiling windows so we can watch the snow. Okay, and a big art studio. Okay, and a cat, a fat one. Okay. She dreamed, and I agreed, as if those far-off dreams were just around the corner. Back in our apartment, we sat by the window, watching the barely visible snow. She rested her head on my shoulder. Caleb, I love you, she said. It was quiet but clear. My body tensed. It was the first time she had said those 3 words since we'd been together. I looked down at her. She was looking up at me, her gaze soft and steady. My throat felt tight. A wave of emotion washed over me. In the end, I just leaned down and kissed her forehead. I know. She buried her face in the crook of my neck and mumbled, You're supposed to say it back. I was silent. My arm tightened around her. Some words were too heavy. I was afraid that if I said them, I wouldn't be able to bear the risk of losing her. She waited a moment, but I said nothing. She let out a soft sigh, but she didn't push. It's okay, she said. I can wait. Wait for you to say you love me. Wait for our future. That night, we held each other as we slept. Outside, the wind howled and the snow fell harder. But inside our small apartment, it was as warm as spring. As the new year approached, my work finally started to take off. A design project that I had led independently received high praise from the client. Not only did they pay the final invoice promptly, but they also referred me to new clients. I got a decent bonus. That day, I went to the bank and withdrew the cash. A thick stack of bills. When I got home, I put the money on the table in front of Chloe. She stared at the stack, stunned. Where did this come from? I earned it, I said, trying to sound casual, but I couldn't stop the corner of my mouth from turning up. She picked up the money and started counting. Her eyes grew wider and wider. There's so much. Yep. She looked at me, then suddenly launched herself at me, jumping into my arms. Caleb, you're amazing. I spun her around. We laughed together like children. That night, we went out for Korean barbecue. We ordered a lot of meat. In the rising steam, her face was flushed and happy. We have money now, she said, her words muffled by a piece of brisket. For now, still a reason to celebrate. She raised her glass of soda. To Caleb, I raised my beer and clinked her glass. To the future, she nodded emphatically. To our future. Halfway through the meal, she put down her chopsticks and looked at me. Her expression was serious. Caleb, let's use this money to do something important. What did you have in mind? Her eyes lit up. Let's start a small studio. I paused. A studio? Yeah, she nodded eagerly. You take on design projects, I'll take on illustration work. We'll be our own bosses. No more answering to anyone, and our schedules will be flexible. She got more and more excited as she talked. We could start small, even work from home. When we get more business, we can rent a small office. I looked at her face, shining in the warm light of the restaurant. Her excitement was contagious. Working for ourselves. I had never considered it before. It was too risky, but now it seemed possible, with her by my side. Okay, I said. Her eyes widened in surprise. You agree? Yeah. She was so happy she almost knocked over her drink. This is amazing. Caleb, we're going to make it. That night, we forgot all about the barbecue and the future. We went home and immediately threw ourselves into planning our studio. We huddled over the desk, sketching out ideas, brainstorming names, services, marketing strategies. We stayed up late into the night, too excited to sleep, filled with a sense of hope for the future that I had never felt before. We named our studio Martin and Hayes. Simple, professional, just like our relationship. We registered the business online and had simple business cards printed. She used her artistic eye to design a logo and a flyer. I started actively building a client list. Everything was moving in the right direction. As spring approached, Chloe got a call. It was from one of her old art professors. He told her about an opportunity, an international grant program for emerging artists. If she was selected, she would not only receive a substantial prize, but also the chance to study at a renowned art academy abroad for a year. Her professor strongly encouraged her to apply. He said her work had a special spark and that she had a good chance. After the call, she was silent. She sat by the window, staring at the bare tree branches outside for a long time. I knew what she was thinking. This opportunity was too good to pass up. But a year of study abroad. It meant being apart. It meant our fledgling studio might have to be put on hold. It meant too many uncertainties. That night in bed, she lay with her back to me. I knew she wasn't asleep. "Do you want to go?" I asked in the darkness. Her body tensed. She didn't turn around. Her voice was muffled. "No. Tell me the truth." She rolled over to face me. In the dark, her eyes were shining. "Yes," she said. "But no buts." I cut her off. "If you want to go, you should go." She looked at me, her expression complicated. "A year is a long time. I know. What about us?" "We won't change," I said, my voice firm. "I'll wait for you." She threw her arms around my neck and buried her face in my shoulder. "Caleb, yeah, I'm going to miss you so much." "Yeah, you have to miss me too." "Okay, every single day." "You're annoying." She laughed into my shoulder, a laugh that turned into a quiet sob. "Caleb, I don't want to leave you." I held her tight. My chin rested on the top of her head. "It's just a year. It'll go by fast." I was saying it to her, but also to myself. Yeah, just a year. Compared to a lifetime, it wasn't that long. As long as she was the destination, I would wait forever. Chloe poured herself into her application. She worked almost nonstop. I knew she wasn't just doing it for the opportunity. She was doing it to prove herself, to prove that her choices were the right ones, to prove that even without her family's support, she could forge her own path. I supported her completely. I took over all the household chores and handled the administrative side of our new studio. At night, I'd make her snacks, and when she'd fall asleep at her desk, I'd carry her to bed. Her submission piece was, once again, a portrait of me, but it was different from light on the ruins in morning. In this painting, I was standing on a construction site, surrounded by a jungle of rebar and concrete, the air thick with dust. I was wearing work clothes splattered with paint, and in my hand wasn't a cigarette, but a rolled-up blueprint. There was exhaustion on my face, but my eyes were fixed on the horizon, filled with a quiet strength, a look toward the future. The sky was a hazy blue-gray, but on the horizon, a sliver of golden dawn was fighting its way through the clouds. She titled it The Search. "See, Caleb," she said, "you're not just searching for a better life. You're the light itself." I looked at her, then at the painting. My heart was overflowing. This girl, she always found a way to see past my rough exterior to find a faint spark within me, and she would polish it until it shone. After she submitted her work, the long wait began. Our life returned to a new normal. Martin and Hayes Studio started to get a steady stream of small projects. The income was unstable, but it was a start. We still lived frugally, but occasionally we'd splurge. A matinee movie ticket, a shopping trip for her favorite snacks after she got paid for a small illustration gig. It was an ordinary life, but we were content. As we waited for the results, she grew anxious. At night, she'd unconsciously clutch my shirt in her sleep. I'd gently pat her back, like a soothing child. "Don't worry," I'd say. "It's okay if you don't get it. We still have the studio. We still have each other." She'd nuzzle against me in response. A month later, the results came in. We were eating a simple dinner of pasta when her phone rang. An international number. She answered, her expression shifting from nervous to disbelief to pure ecstasy. When she hung up, she stared at me, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. "Caleb." "Yeah." I got in, she said, her voice sounding distant. I got in. I froze. Then, an overwhelming wave of joy washed over me. I dropped my fork and threw my arms around her. That's amazing, Chloe. That's amazing. She laughed and jumped in my arms that I really did it. Caleb, I get to go study. We spun around the tiny living room like two lunatics. We finally stopped, breathless and laughing. After the initial euphoria, the practicalities began to sink in. A year of study in France. Airfare, living expenses. The grant would help, but it wouldn't be enough. And a year. 365 days. An ocean and a continent between us. She looked at me, the excitement in her eyes slowly replaced by worry. Caleb, I ruffled her hair. Don't think about that. This is an incredible opportunity. You have to go. I'll figure out the money. She looked at me. You'll work yourself to death. I'm not afraid of hard work, I said, looking in her eyes. I'm afraid of you having regrets. She shook her head fiercely. I won't have regrets. Not ever. In the weeks that followed, we prepared for her departure. I used every connection I had, took on more freelance work, even projects I normally would have turned down, low-paying but time-consuming. She was busy with visa applications, paperwork, and cramming French lessons. We were both incredibly busy. We saw each other less. Sometimes I'd come home late at night to find her asleep, a glass of warm milk and a note waiting for me on the table. Don't forget to drink this. Get some sleep. Sometimes I'd leave early in the morning before she was awake. I'd kiss her forehead gently. I'd stand by the door for a moment, watching her sleep peacefully in the morning light. My heart ached with a bittersweet mix of love and a heavy sense of responsibility. I had to let her fly, without any worries. Her departure date grew closer. A deliberately calm atmosphere settled between us. Neither of us wanted to talk about the impending separation. 3 days before she left, we went back to the art museum where we'd had our first real date. The painting, ruins, and flowers was still there. We stood before it, just like we had that first time. Time goes by so fast, she said softly. Yeah. Caleb, I'm a little scared. Of what? I'm scared that being apart for so long will change things. I took her hand. Some things won't change. She turned to look at me. Like what? Like my heart, I said. My voice was quiet but clear. She froze for a second, her eyes slowly turning red. Then she smiled. A beautiful, radiant smile. Yeah, she nodded emphatically. Mine too. After the museum, we walked through the nearby alleys. The setting sun stretched our shadows long behind us. She suddenly stopped and pulled a small box from her bag. She handed it to me. A gift for you. I opened it. Inside was a pair of simple, silver cufflinks. The design was elegant, 2 interlocking planets. When you see them, I want you to think of me, she said, like I'm always by your side. I looked at her, my throat tight. These must have been expensive. I bought them with the money from my first illustration gig, she said, a little proudly. For now on, I can use my own money to buy you more things. I closed my hand around the box, holding it tight. Thank you. I love them. She smiled, her eyes curving into crescents. The night before she left, we finished packing her last suitcase. We sat on the love seat, a heavy silence between us. The sorrow of parting was a thick fog in the room. She leaned against me, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of my shirt. You don't have to come to the airport with me tomorrow, she said. Why not? I am afraid. I'll cry, and it'll be ugly, she mumbled. And I'm afraid it will be harder for you to watch me leave. I was silent for a moment. Okay. We barely slept that night. We just held each other, listening to the rhythm of our heartbeats, as if trying to memorize the very essence of each other. Just before dawn, she finally drifted off to sleep in my arms that I looked at her peaceful face, leaned down, and gently kissed her lips. Wait for me, I thought. I'll become a better man, and I'll come get you. In the morning, the taxi arrived. I helped her carry her luggage downstairs. The driver loaded it into the trunk. She stood by the car, looking at me. Her eyes were red, and she was fighting back tears. I'm going now. Okay. Take care of yourself. You too. Eat properly. Okay. Don't smoke too much. I'll try. Think of me every day. Okay. She looked at me, and the tears finally fell. I stepped forward and pulled her into a tight hug. So, tight it felt like I was trying to merge our bodies into one. Chloe, yeah, we get over there. Okay, focus on your studies. Don't worry about money. Okay, don't cry. She nodded against my chest, her shoulders shaking. The taxi driver honked the horn, a gentle reminder that it was time to go. She pulled away from me, wiping her tears away clumsily. I'm really going now. Okay. She opened the car door and got in. She closed the door. We looked at each other through the window. She tried to smile, but it looked more painful than crying. The car started to move, driving away. I stood there, watching until the taxi disappeared around the corner. A part of me felt instantly hollow. The wind blew, carrying the chill of early spring. I stood there for a long time before turning and slowly walking back upstairs, back to the apartment that was now empty except for me. The air still seemed to hold her scent. On the table, the box with the planet cufflinks sat. They gleamed softly in the morning light. I picked one up, closing my hand around it. The cold metal slowly warmed to my touch, just like she had once warmed my frozen heart. Now it was my turn to use time and hard work to protect that warmth and wait for her to come back. 14. In the days after Chloe left, I turned myself into a machine. I worked diligently at my day job, and at night, I came home to manage the studio's business and take on freelance projects. Martin and Hayes Studio didn't falter in her absence. On the contrary, under my relentless efforts, it began to thrive. I moved us to a slightly larger apartment, with a room set aside as her studio. On the windowsill, the plants she loved grew lush and green. I quit smoking because I had promised her I would. When I felt overwhelmed, I'd unwrap one of the lollipops she'd left behind and let it dissolve in my mouth. The sweetness would remind me of her smile as she handed them to me. We video chatted every day, across a 7-hour time difference. It was usually evening for her and late at night for me. She'd show me her studio, the sunsets over the Seine, the crowds of strangers on foreign streets. She had lost a little weight, but the light in her eyes was brighter than ever. She said the artistic atmosphere there was both inspiring and humbling. She said she was learning so much, absorbing new things every day. Caleb, I feel like I'm growing so fast, she said. Good, I'd reply. She was a bird meant to fly, not to be caged by me in a small apartment. She missed home, and she missed me. Sometimes, in the middle of a call, she'd fall silent. Then her eyes would turn red. Caleb, I miss you. On my end of the screen, my heart would clench. I miss you too, I'd say. It was the most direct declaration of love I was capable of. She'd immediately break into a smile through her tears. Say it again. I miss you. Who misses me? Caleb misses Chloe. She'd laugh like a child on the other side of the world. That's more like it. The days passed, filled with work and longing. My career finally reached a turning point. A design project that I had poured my heart and soul into won an award in a prestigious industry competition. It came with a hefty prize, but more importantly, it brought unprecedented attention. The name Martin and Hayes Studio started to get recognized. The caliber of clients seeking my services improved dramatically. My income grew accordingly. I replaced my old, slow computer and rented a proper office space for the studio. It wasn't big, but it was bright and clean. I put the key to her studio to be on the desk, took a picture, and sent it to her. Look, your studio, waiting for you. She replied with a string of exclamation points. Caleb, you're incredible. I knew you could do it. Seeing her excitement made all the exhaustion worth it. 6 months flew by. Her studies were going well, and her work was praised by her professors. My studio was also on solid ground, and I was about to hire my first employee. We were both on our separate tracks, running as fast as we could toward a better reunion. Until the day I received an unfamiliar international call. It wasn't Chloe. It was one of her classmates in France, her voice frantic. Is this Mr. Hayes? It's Chloe. She's been in an accident. My heart stopped. What happened to her? She was mugged while she was sketching. She's okay, just a little shaken up. They took her art supplies and money, and her phone was smashed. She's at the hospital for observation. I could barely hear the rest of what she said. My head was spinning. Mugged. Hospital. I booked the next available flight to Paris. The 12-hour flight was torture. I couldn't sit still, my mind filled with terrifying scenarios. It wasn't until I walked into that Paris hospital room and saw her, a bandage on her arm, her face pale but sitting up in bed, whole and alive, that the weight in my chest finally lifted. She saw me, froze, and then burst into tears. "Caleb, what are you doing here?" I walked over and pulled her into a tight hug. My own body was still shaking. "You scared the hell out of me." I buried my face in her neck, my voice hoarse. She hugged me back, sobbing too hard to speak. "I'm okay. I'm really okay. I was just scared." She haltingly told me what had happened. She had just been sketching on a street corner when a couple of punks targeted her. They took her things, and in the struggle, she fell and scraped her arm. It could have been so much worse. I stayed in Paris with her for a week. I helped her with the police report and bought her a new phone and art supplies. Her professors and classmates were wonderful, helping her replace her lost documents. The incident seemed to have made her stronger. The day I was leaving at Charles de Gaulle Airport, she hugged me tightly. "Caleb, thank you for coming. Don't be silly. Wait for me to come home," she said, looking at me with determination. "The next time you come to get me, I won't be leaving." I kissed her forehead. Okay. After returning home, I worked even harder. A sense of urgency propelled me forward. I had to give her a future that was completely safe, where she would never have to be scared again. Her final exhibition was approaching, and she was in the final stages of her project. We video chatted less, but in every conversation, I could feel her growing confidence and maturity. Winter came again. 2 months until she was due to return home. I received a digital invitation to her final exhibition. The opening was a week before her flight home. "Caleb, you have to be there," she said in a video call, her eyes sparkling. "I want you to be the first one to see my work." "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." I secretly applied for a visa, booked a flight, and a hotel. I didn't tell her. I wanted to surprise her. The night before I left, I packed my bag. I carefully fastened the Planet cufflinks to the cuffs of my shirt. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. I was no longer the gloomy, cold Caleb. There was something new in my eyes, a quiet confidence, a sense of responsibility, a steadiness forged by separation and hardship. I knew. I was ready to go and meet my light, ready to give her a home. Stepping onto the streets of Paris for the second time felt completely different. The panic and anxiety were gone, replaced by anticipation and a quiet thrill. Her final exhibition was held in an old, prestigious art academy. I found the address from the invitation. The gallery was crowded, a mix of different languages filling the air. I wore the shirt she had bought the cufflinks for, scanning the crowd for her. And then I saw her. She was standing in front of a painting that had drawn a large crowd, speaking fluent French with an elderly man who looked like one of the judges. She wore a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, revealing the graceful line of her neck. Her profile was focused, confident, radiating a kind of brilliance I had never seen before. In the year we'd been apart, she had grown so much. She was no longer the young girl who needed my protection. She was an artist, independent, with her own world, her own thoughts. I stood at the edge of the crowd, not approaching her immediately, just watching her. My heart swelled with pride and an indescribable sense of emotion. My Chloe, she was truly shining. As if she felt my gaze, she turned her head, her eyes cutting through the crowd and landing directly on me. In that instant, her poised composure shattered. It was replaced by pure shock, then incredulous joy. She forgot all about the judge she was talking to. She gathered her dress in her hands and practically ran through the crowd to me. "Caleb, what are you doing here?" Her voice trembled with excitement, her eyes instantly welling up. I looked at her and smiled. "I came to see your show." She stared at me for a long moment, then threw herself into my arms, her arms wrapped tightly around my neck. "You lied to me. You didn't say you were coming," she accused, her voice choked with happy tears, but her hug only tightened. People around us were looking, smiling warmly. I wrapped my arms around her waist, letting her hold on. "I wanted to surprise you." She pulled back, her face wet with tears, but her smile was the most brilliant thing I'd ever seen. "Surprise. This is the best surprise." She grabbed my hand and pulled me through the crowd to the painting everyone had been admiring. "Look, my thesis project." I looked up at the canvas and froze. The painting was a man's back. He was standing in a studio that was still under construction, surrounded by scattered blueprints, paint cans, and unfinished canvases. Outside the window, the sun was rising, a flood of golden red light pouring in, enveloping his entire figure. His head was slightly turned as he looked down at a pair of small, silver cufflinks in his hand. The cufflinks reflected the morning light in tiny, brilliant sparks. His posture was strong, filled with a quiet power and a resolute hope for the future. In the bottom right corner was the title of the work, The Journey Home, and her name, Chloe Martin. I stood there, staring at the painting of myself, staring at the moment she had captured on canvas, a moment so full of hope. My throat felt thick like I couldn't speak. So this is how she saw me now. I was no longer the ruins. I was the destination of her journey. I was her. Journey home. She gently squeezed my hand. "Do you like it?" she whispered. I turned to look at her. Her eyes were shining, reflecting my own image back at me, filled with a little nervousness and a world of hope. I took her hand in mine, my grip tight. Then, in front of everyone, I leaned down and kissed her. No holding back. Not anymore. This kiss carried the weight of the distance we had crossed, the longing of a long year apart, and all the promises of our future together. The room erupted in applause and cheers. She trembled in my arms, then kissed me back with equal fervor. When we finally broke apart, we rested our foreheads together, breathless. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes wet. "Caleb, yeah, let's go home." "Okay, let's go home." 1 year later, Martin and Hayes Studio had become a well-known name in the city's design scene. We moved into a larger office space and hired a small, dedicated team. Chloe's paintings were also gaining recognition in the national art world, and she was featured in several major exhibitions. With our savings from the past few years, we made a down payment on a small condo. It wasn't big, but it had a bright living room and a real studio for her. The balcony faced south, and in the winter, the sun would fill most of the apartment. It was just like the dream she'd had on that snowy night, eating a hot pretzel. The night we moved in, we sat on the floor, leaning against the bare walls, drinking beer to celebrate. Outside the window was the glittering skyline of the city, a sea of lights. She leaned her head on my shoulder, pointing to the tallest skyscraper in the distance. "Caleb, one day, let's get the penthouse in that building, the one with the rooftop garden." I took a sip of my beer. "Okay." She laughed. "You're agreeing so easily now." "Yeah," I said, looking at her. "Whatever you want, it's okay." She leaned over and kissed me, a reward for being so sweet. We looked at each other and smiled. After a moment of comfortable silence, she said softly, "Caleb, I feel so happy right now." I didn't say anything, just pulled her closer. Happiness. That word had once been so foreign to me. Now, it had a tangible form. The warmth of the person in my arms, the existence of this small space that was ours. It was the simple act of waking up every morning and seeing her face. On the weekend, we went to a furniture store. We picked out a sofa, curtains, a dining table for our new home. She couldn't decide between 2 different colored rugs and asked for my opinion. I pointed to the warm gray one. "This one, it won't show dirt." She gave me a playful glare. "Can't you have a little aesthetic sense?" We ended up buying the cream-colored one. She said it looked warmer. On the way home, we passed by the corner store where we first met. The little bell on the door still chimed. We went inside. It was the same counter. Just like that first night, she stood on her tiptoes, tried to reach a bag of chips on the top shelf. I walked over, easily grabbed it, and handed it to her. She turned around, her eyes bright, like they'd caught fallen stars. "Oh, thank you." The exact same words as all those years ago. We looked at each other and laughed. At the counter, she insisted on paying. Then she grabbed an orange lollipop from the jar by the register and pressed it into my hand. "Life's bitter enough," she said, mimicking her own words from that first night, a smile playing on her lips. "Needs a little sugar." I took the lollipop, unwrapped it, and put it in my mouth. It was just as sweet, but this time it didn't feel sickening. It felt just right. We walked out of the store into the gentle night air. She naturally linked her arm with mine, resting her head on my shoulder. "Caleb, yeah, how long have we known each other?" 3 years, 2 months, and 7 days. She looked up surprised. "You remember that clearly?" "Yeah." From the day she crashed into my gray world like a stray sunbeam, I remembered every single day. She looked at me, her eyes slowly getting misty. Then, She stopped walking and turned to face me. She pulled a small box from her purse. She opened it. Inside were two simple platinum rings. They shone with a soft, warm light under the street lamp. She picked up the men's ring, looked at me, her voice trembling slightly, but incredibly clear. "Caleb Hayes, will you marry me?" He stared at her, at her small, pale face, tense with nerves, at the deep love and do-or-die bravery in her eyes. This girl, she had cracked open my frozen heart. With her warmth, her stubbornness, her love, she had slowly melted me, remade me. She taught me that I could be loved, that I, too, was worthy of the light. I reached out and pulled her into a fierce hug, so tight, as if to make up for all the lost time, as if to borrow against all the hugs of our future. Then I let her go, took the women's ring from the box, and got down on one knee. The order was a little messed up, but some traditions were important. I looked up at her shocked and tearful face and said, each word clear and deliberate, "Chloe Martin, that's my line. Will you marry me? Let me take care of you for the rest of our lives." Her tears broke free, big, fat tears rolling down her cheeks. She nodded furiously, holding out her hand. "Yes, yes, I will." I gently slid the ring onto the fourth finger of her left hand. A perfect fit. She pulled me up and put the other ring on my finger. Then we stood under the streetlight, looking at the rings on each other's hands, and held each other tight. A few people walking by applauded. Strangers, wishing us well. In my arms, she whispered through her tears, "Caleb, I love you." This time I didn't hesitate. I leaned down and kissed the top of her head. And with the softest, most resolute voice I had ever used in my life, I answered her. "I love you too, so much." From the very first lollipop, from the moment she stubbornly pressed my hand to her chest. My heart has only ever beaten for her. The wind picked up, carrying the warmth of the early summer night and the faint scent of gardenias. It blew over our clasped hands, over the rings that symbolized our promise. And it blew over the long, happy life that was just about to begin. My name is Caleb Hayes. I used to live like a shadow, until Chloe showed up. She broke through the ice around my heart and let the light in. From that day on, my world has been nothing but spring. End.